Hey, what is up ladies and gentlemen, I'm Sonic the Hedgehog here, and I'm back for some more yet again for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to more Let's Play of Wario World for the Nintendo GameCube. So, last time we have managed to able to completely done with every single part in World 2 by simply going through the Wonky Circus. In addition with going through Wonky Circus, we also managed to beat the likes of those two bosses, which they are clowning around, as well as the forms of the main world boss, which appears to be Dual Dragon. So even then, today for this episode is the fact that we're going to be taking on the forms of the third world in this game, which appears to be Thrillsville. Now, if you guys can clearly tell already, this is actually my third time doing the actual recording sessions of this. This is probably because I was supposed to be able to actually just, do this in a previous recording attempt, which I'll point things out whenever we get to it. So for now, let's dive right into the forms of the first level in Thrillsville, and that appears to be a snowy themed level, believe it or not, and it appears to be the forms of Shivering Mountains. So even then, perfect time for able to actually just to realize, well, despite the fact that we've already got a month left until the forms of likely Christmas time, because yes, as you can tell already, that, we're actually getting pretty close to December. So, despite the fact that today's day is the forms of the 11th of November today, so even then though, chances are there's going to be a lot of emphasis on the forms of, let's just say the Remembrance Day, basically. So even then, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves for this point, because even then, it already happened about 11 o'clock, and I did done the actual 2-minute silence. So even then, yeah, not much else has been going on for this point today, apart from the fact that, well, we've already just got ourselves about 4 more days to go until Pokemon Sword and Shield game will be releasing, but despite the fact that I'm still not going to pick up that game because, well, usually I'm not a huge Pokemon fanatic, but at least I'm quite good when it comes to Pokemon games that I've already got, such as like the Pokepark Duology series, and as well as the forms of Pokemon Snap, which appears to be my favorite childhood memory game, for the Nintendo 64 that is. And aside from everything else, that's about it. So even then, since I'm not a huge, main Pokemon fanatic, like for instance the main series of games and all that stuff, and always have a good time with Pokemon Puzzle League, despite how difficult that game can be, especially when we get to the very end, even with the, depends on what difficulty you select. But either way though, that's just besides the point. So look at that. We're actually going to be climbing through the actual Christmas trees all by itself, which is pretty cool actually, because then again, as I mentioned this before, that about the fact that we've already just got about a month left until the actual, Christmas season is about to be arise. So even then, let's go ahead and free those little spiritings, as you can tell. So even then though, hopefully we can able to guarantee by that, and we'll just double check on these ingloos before I seem to be missing something, which thankfully that's not the case. So even then though, I think we should be all set. So here we go with this anglerfish kind of mini fights going on here, and basically we need to utilize these enemies once again, and this time around we need to do like some sort of like a timing thing, where basically if you're trying to grab the enemy and hopefully trying to ground pound onto this section here, then that way you would able to actually deal the damage on the anglerfish. So even then, and the only aim for this is that you need to aim for its mouth when the teeth actually is like shown up. So even then, it's not that hard to begin with, but what if first time I played this level on my own time, I just seem to have no idea how I'm supposed to deal with him. But it turns out that you do need to able to utilize the ground pound technique until you're able to deal the damage on the anglerfish. Now I believe there are only about 2 sections with the anglerfish fights, like one of them you have to deal with like 3 hits on him, and I believe nearly towards the end, I figure he might actually get himself likely more health than usual, so even then though, that's as far from the case. So here's the biggest challenge of this particular stage, as you can see, that because of this though, some of these collectibles, most notably with the golden Franklin statues, as well as the forms of some other parts of the actual level, that we need to get a lot of utilizing with the forms of the ice sliding segments, which Unlikely though is the fact that you can't able to actually run back up with it though, because to be expected with the icy snowy themed levels is going to be twice as slippery, and as well as from that, you don't think you can able to backtrack from the ice sliding at this point until you're able to find yourselves the stack of balloons with the actual glue globe. So unfortunately for this point, that we need to do the ridiculous amount of backtracking. If you're able to missing one of them, well, unfortunately for you, you have to come across into that specific stuff again, which, frankly, it's not so difficult on the first part, but the second part, however, though, that it might actually get a little bit, you know, ridiculously tricky. So, but apart from all that stuff, though, you know, not much else to really think about it. So even then, yeah, let's get to the forms of about the fact that this is my third time recording this. Basically, for the first attempt on this recording session, I just got interrupted by, I would say I got interrupted by Silver the Hedgehog because, well, he obviously uses the psychic powers accidentally, because he accidentally opens up the door by itself with his telekinesis. And I did tell him about the fact that, Silver, can you just let me do this recording session, please? And then he'll be like, he'll be okay with that, because even then, although he doesn't say like, it's no use or anything like that. But anyway, enough about that specific pun. But anyways though, and the second attempt of that particular recording session I've done, I just keep on rumbling around like an idiot. So even then, yeah, because hopefully though, for the third time recording this, hopefully it should be a little bit more better than the forms of how it does it on the previous two. So even then, and because chances are though, I just want to able to get this Let's Play finished before when Piglet might actually get back into Toy Story 2. So even then, and because of that though, hopefully though, by the time for the forms of this month or something like that, hopefully we can able to actually get an opportunity that we could able to wrap things up with most of the other Let's Plays for that too. Such as like, you know, Mario needs to still need to get back into Super Mario Odyssey for Luigi's Bloom World, and as well as from that, I would say the forms of, you know, Mario Kart 8 / Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for me and Sylvester, and I still pretty much need to get back into Kingdom Hearts Final Mix before I, you know, that particular year will be almost over. So, but then again, it's been about a whole month since I actually came back to Kingdom Hearts Final Mix because of, you know, with the forms of how the fact that recently that after Duffy has recently finished up with his Let's Play of Super Mario Galaxy 2, and then I managed to able to briefly go back into, you know, Kingdom Hearts Final Mix for a bit, specifically trying to conclude rather, the 100 Acre Wood World, and in that way it makes it a little bit obvious for that point. So, anyways though, so let's go ahead and deal with another set of enemies right here for the actual enemy arena battles, as you can probably guys can clearly see. So hopefully, relatively speaking, we can able to gather some more coins, and basically for everything, basically. So even then, we can able to accept that. So I suppose another thing I just want to mention about this also is the fact that recently I managed to able to pick up myself my component splitter, which only allows me to able to hold up for about 3 component cables, sadly. But regardless of such, it will be very helpful, especially noticeable whenever I manage to play through my Nintendo Wii stuff, as well as my PlayStation 3, and eventually at this point, I'm actually going to be switching over my HDMI cable for my Xbox 360 to the component cable, because, well, you might as well find out until whenever it gets to, you know, specifically for Christmas Day or something. Well, in this case, the next installment of the actual Christmas videos or something like that. Well, though, it might be a little bit different for this year, though, because it might be get ourselves a little bit of a delay in between one day, just because, well, you might as well find out whenever we get discuss upon that specific stuff. However, though, the actual schedule for this particular point for this year, though, it will be out of place on the 26th of October, oh, no, not the October, the 26th of December, I should say, because of how the fact that October is already finished and over. But anyways, though, because of that, though, the actual next installment of the actual Christmas videos for our channel will be delayed until the forms of the 26th of December. I think this is pretty obvious because of how the fact that me and Tiana are about to be going out somewhere. So even then, though, hopefully I'll be back by then, but even then, though, we'll have to wait and see what happens there. So anyway, so let's go ahead and deal with the next puzzle segment here. So in this case, we need to deal with a lot of emphasis on switches. So I believe we do need to activate that one there, and mouse to able to actually just, well, just trying to able to turn those on. So even then, let's just wait until the second switch actually goes back. And we do need to let that thing left on, because that way it allows me to able to go ahead and continue my progression on that specific puzzle element. So, because what if my first time I've experiencing this particular bonus level, I should say, for this particular point, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do for that part. But luckily for me, I pretty much know exactly what I'm going to be doing for this point. Until, you know, the final platforming level. So, but hopefully we're able to actually come across into that, and you know what I'm talking about right for this point until later on. But even then, no, not now though, because even now we're actually getting slightly close towards the end of specifically for this Let's Play. So, but you know, you get the drill for this point. So even then, I just want to able to actually classify for such. So even then, let's just go ahead and deal with these exactly the same identical enemies as the forms of how it does it on the previous worlds. In fact, you know, they share the exact same names, but they usually act out very similar, or in this case, very samey as the forms of how it does it on the previous worlds. So, but I digress though, so even then though, let's just go ahead and chuck the actual enemy over to the forms of that particular ice wall, which apparently it's unbreakable though, but even then we'll have to accept that. So, I suppose another thing I'd like to mention is the fact that, well, to be honest, there's not much else I can really talk about this at this point, apart from the fact that we were expecting to able to see the final set of information until the actual 2019's Nintendo Direct stuff will be over and done with. But either way though, it's just a matter of the fact that with the actual, you know, the timing development is actually a little bit of a convoluted or something like that, so. Anyway, so here's the next bonus level right here, or the actual obstacle challenge right here. And this is pretty cool though, because we do need to get a lot of emphasis on these things here. And because of that though, we do need to be exactly on the very top of that specific platforming parts right there. So just in case you would able to actually make your way to the actual parts itself like this, so. Oh yeah, about that, recently, about the fact that, you know, with the forms of, the game series called Five Nights at Freddy's. Apparently though, that the first 3 games specifically for Five Nights at Freddy's, which is specifically the first one, the second, and the third one, apparently though, the 4th one is not going to be able to be arriving just yet on the Switch. But apparently though, that the first 3, you know, Five Nights at Freddy's trilogy game, it will be coming out for the Nintendo Switch, and it turns out it was actually true. So even then though, and as far as the release date goes for, you know, Five Nights at Freddy's trilogy, I think it might actually come out exactly the same day as each other. So basically, this is how it goes. Basically, you're able to release, I think it's later on throughout this month, specifically the 29th of November, which is exactly the same day as the forms of how it does it on the, I would say, the forms of the 6th year anniversary of the release date for Super Mario 3D World for the UK version. So, and as far as the forms of the American version goes, alongside with Mario Party Island Tour and even The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds, oh yeah, and also the Xbox One and even the Americans version launch of the PlayStation 4, that you know, it'll be around that time until the 11 days time. So, and this is pretty cool though with this puzzle segment, because we need to do a Simon Says kind of memorization game. Or you can just simply just manage to able to bust out these blocks while the actual memorization game is still continuous. And then once you're done with that, you get yourselves a next red diamond as well as the next piece of the golden statue. So, yeah, it's not too bad though, especially noticeable. There's also another one when we get to later on, and somehow I just got shorted by that moving icicle. But I digress though, so even then, there's not much else I can really say about this sadly though, because even then I just want to able to actually just to point things out, and especially noticeable in during the forms of next week or so, especially noticeable about the fact that because tomorrow, Piglet will definitely need to get back into the forms of Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz, and then eventually in this first day, he would able to conclude that Let's Play, spoiler warning, and hopefully by that time until next week or so, is the fact that he will definitely coming back into, you know, Toy Story 2. And then eventually at this point, the actual recording schedule for that point is going to get a little bit different between the forms of Toy Story 2 and among with the others. This is pretty obvious because of how the fact that eventually we'll might as well able to switch over the actual recording sessions for the actual daily standpoint when it comes to both you know, Wario World as well as, you know, Toy Story 2 in a different amount of days, because I thought that about the fact that I was expecting if Wario World will be the longest games of the two, but it turns out it was actually Toy Story 2 instead, which, you know, I'm fine with, because even then though, that he might actually decide to able to actually just, well, just go back into that, I suppose, and, also because of how the fact that I just realized that Wario World is actually one of the shortest games when it comes to the forms of any other Wario platformer games, I just realized. Despite with, if you're trying to able to explore hard enough in between each levels, as far as I'm aware, then expect most of these levels can go a little bit longer. But it turns out it actually is the shortest Wario platformer games out there. So, I wasn't near to that. Yeah, I wasn't so much near to that though. In fact, let me just go ahead and use this icicle enemy thing again, so hopefully we can able to actually just access to the actual platforming department. So okay, there we go. So now we can able to free the next spiritling right here. So I believe we've only got about one more left. Yeah, I think we got one last spiritling left. So, and yeah, at this point is that this particular world for World 3, even for Thrillsville as a result, the only way you can able to access this next boss is that you do need to require about 5 red diamonds, and especially noticeable whenever we get to World 4, it might actually go up a bit into 6. So yeah, because at this point in time, it's the fact that in order to actually continue progression in this game though, this means you must able to collect the insane amount of those red diamonds as possible, because even then, if you don't have enough though, well, you got to keep on, like, you know, backtracking for a moment until you're able to find most of the bonus areas, as well as the forms of some obstacle, you know, challenging platforming segments areas, until you're able to actually guarantee you can get yourselves the, you know, the red diamonds to your disposal. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, son of a biscuit. Yeah, I just hate these little bumpery enemies in this game though, because sometimes, if you really want to be very careful for a moment, thankfully there's only appeared in one level, not all the levels I should say, which is good, but even then though, chances are that if you really want to go ahead and just try to able to actually just access to different parts of the actual level, well, at least if you're trying to do a speedrun tactics like I'm just doing right here, unfortunately though, for me though, I'm just getting shoved over with those little particular bumpy looking enemies, as you can see right there. So, but hopefully though, we can able to actually just cut straight through it, and hopefully we can able to see what's up here. But before we do that, let's go ahead and get ourselves a next piece of garlic, which might be redundant, especially because we've already got ourselves our full health as it goes. And as you can see, we actually come across into, I think this is actually the next switch, I should say. So hopefully we can able to actually access to the actual next treasure chest. I think it's somewhere in the at the very end of the actual level. So, and the best strategy for this is just trying to toss the actual enemy, because unlike, you know, jumping and punching at the same time, well, we can't able to actually reach that specific height. So you do need to utilize the enemies to able to, you know, just trying to activate that. So, and also there's a golden fragment statue piece, as you can tell, as well as the next treasure chest. So I think we've already down to 2 more to go when it comes to the forms of the treasure chest alike. So yeah, I actually don't mind this level though. It's basically because of how the fact that usually I always enjoy the aesthetics of the actual snow levels, especially when, you know how Christmas is almost getting close to able to actually make its approach, and basically because of how the fact that I just simply know that Christmas is almost going to be up. So even then, I was quite pleasantly surprised by. But even then though, despite the fact we've already got a month left until the forms of Christmas season starts, so, and especially noticeable, well, the only bad thing about this stage though, for me though, and now the forms of, if you really want to go after every single collectibles, most notably with the golden statue pieces, well, I'm afraid to say to you is the fact that if you somehow miss one of them, if you manage to get the wrong angle, then I'm afraid for you though is the fact that you have to, like, you know, just trying to go back all the way back to the very beginning of the stage, and then hopefully, God forbid, trying to grab it again. So that might be seems the case for this particular stage. But luckily, though, it's nothing compared to the forms of how it does it on the final platforming stage, though, which I'll point things out whenever we get to it until, let's just say, on next Tuesday or something, because even then, you know, we might actually change the actual uploading schedules in between, you know, both Wario World and Toy Story 2 at the same time. So even then, though, chances are, you know, that make it happen, so. But, you know, things get a little bit more relative and all that stuff, so even then, though. Excuse me, I got something in my throat there, I do apologize for that. So, yeah, because at this point in time, folks, is the fact that since we're almost getting close to, you know, in 2019 still, hopefully by that time for this particular... No! I did not meant to do that. And especially it really doesn't help about the fact that with these bumpers, you know, the bumpy looking enemies just keeps on getting in my way. Not exactly sure what these enemies are called here and there though, but I'm also able to actually double check it in just a moment. But even then though, that's just far from the case regrettably. So, but this is a pretty cool challenge though, is that you can able to actually just to do it's a bit like a timing thing, where you basically have to time your jumps correctly until you're able to, hopefully you might as well able to get yourselves not only the actual red diamond, but also the another golden piece of the statue. So, yeah, that's pretty swell. And now let's go ahead and leave, so even then we can able to just go ahead and do some same stuff, I suppose, like beating up some more enemies and all that stuff. So even then though, yeah. Actually, it turns out with the forms of that specific mini-fight that we've already come across since the very beginning of this stage, apparently though, you know with the angular fish that I've already mentioned this before, his actual name was actually the forms of angular mangle, which is kind of a weird name per se, but either way though, that's as far from the case though, so anyways, here we go with this another enemy endurance run section right there. And I think when we get to the point until at the very end of the game, I don't think we can able to actually come across into these anymore until whenever we go towards the end of the very end of this game. So, until the forms of, you know, probably the longest level in the whole entire game, when we come across into that until at some point in the forms of, you know, next Tuesday specifically, because then again, we do need to change up the forms of the actual, some of these scheduled recordings between other Let's Plays in mind, so... Because, yeah, ever since during the forms of, you know, in 2012, that we keep on holding up for certain Let's Plays for quite a while, ever since during the forms of 2012, and then all the way up to 2018, that most of our current Let's Plays are still ongoing, which I will say, though, it is a bit redundant to able to actually leave so many Let's Plays up before New Year starts, so even then I might as well able to actually get this out of the way right now. Now, we're going to say this again anyway, though, ever since in 2011, probably, about the fact that we're definitely going to have to finish up with the majority of the Let's Plays in time before, you know, the New Year starts, and then we can able to start fresh, and hopefully we can able to actually do some sort of a different system in comparison to the forms of how it does it on, you know, the past few years and stuff like that. So, I think that could be a little bit more relative and all that stuff, because then again, that I know a lot of people seem to able to notice by this point that we didn't get that much views in terms of like several other Let's Plays in mind. Well, the only game's exceptions is of course Mario Kart 8 / Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, as well as the forms of the redo Let's Play of Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz recently. So, and I really don't know about that will make it happen in during the forms of Step and Roll in next year, but even then we'll find out and see what happens there, as well as Super Monkey Ball 3D. But then again, we'll have to wait and see what happens there until, you know, the next year is about to be, you know, going and make it happen. So, even then, that's far from the case, regrettably. So, anyways, let's go ahead and beat these enemies again, and hopefully we can able to take on the forms, the Angular Mangler right here. And yeah, it has more health than the forms of how it does it from previously now. So this means we do need to get a lot of emphasis on attacking him. So... but yeah, that's far from the case at this point, guys. But even then, let's just go ahead and deal the last damage on an angular fish, and things get a little bit more relative, and we're not going to see him ever again, because until at this point, until likely the future levels of this game, we might actually come across into a different boss fights or mini fights for that matter. So, anyways, before we you know, wrap things up for this world, or this level anyway, though. Hopefully we need to get some more coins for, you know, just trying to able to add some more health to the mix. And also another treasure chest around here. And, hopefully by that time we can able to come across into, oh, of course, the ice sliding segments. This is going to be a little bit tricky because if you're not knowing where the actual golden, piece of the fragment piece, in fact, actually missed one right there because I heard that familiar sound. But luckily for me, though, I can able to actually access to that treasure chest down there. And looks like we are actually at the very end of this particular level already. But before we do that, then we take on the forms of the next platforming challenge first. So hopefully that makes a little bit sense. So I wonder what we got around here. Oh, crikey, man. We got a lot of spike balls to able to navigate through, while simply able to get not only the red diamond, but also the final spirit link. So, yeah, not too bad though, and not too shabby either. So, but apart from the fact that we're missing one of those collectible items left, which is of course the final golden piece of the fragment statue pieces. So, but yeah, that's far from the case at this point. So even then, I'm probably not going to do a jump cut for that point right there, because I'm most likely going to show off some of the parts of the actual collectibles that you need to gather. So, yeah, that's the only tedious part about this stage, in my opinion, though. And that is, of course, the ice sliding segments. In fact, you can't even jump in mid-air at all times if you're trying to go for that specific stuff, because you always have to get, like, you always have to put up with yourselves the forms of, likely, specifically, the actual ton of momentum. But even then, though, if you manage to able to get your momentum going, then at least you could able to actually make it a little bit easier, but that again is impossible to do so. But anyways, so yeah, I've now finally managed to go myself the forms of, as I mentioned this before already in a few seconds ago, now managed to finally go myself the forms of the actual the component splitter, which means I can able to finally get a chance to able to play through 3 different modes in between the Wii, PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, all that stuff finally. And because of that, though, I'm actually going to be leaving one more slot for the HDMI slot, unless if there is actually a PlayStation 5 about to be driven out in forms of next year's holiday for, you know, in 2020, along the same lines as, you know, Project Scarlet for the Xbox Microsoft stuff. Don't know exactly what the actual final name is supposed to be, but even then, we'll have to wait and see what happens there until, let's just say, next year's E3, so even then, though, for E3 2020, so, but you know, you get the idea for that point. So even then, though, that's as far from the case, regrettably. So anyways, let's bypass those little bouncy, bumpery enemies, as you can see right there, and hopefully we're able to actually speed things up a little bit, so that we could able to actually get ourselves the forms of the final collectible, and hopefully, whoa, Jesus Christ, man, I just got shoved over all of a sudden. And too bad I lost some of my coins already, which is a little bit useless. And escape spring is just right there, and hopefully we would make our way through without even getting shoved over all over again. And it seems more accurately that seems the case. And I think we definitely need to go from the right. Yeah, sometimes you can't really see what's up ahead, although you can able to see from up there. Oh, got it. Second attempt on that specific trying to grab the actual golden fragment piece. And there's also a nice little shortcut, unless if you just, well, not so much the shortcut though, but even then though, we'll just have to get this level done. So, and yeah, as I mentioned this before, it does require 5 of those red diamonds, as you can clearly see. So, and here we go. On to this next boss fight in this game, and it appears to be this weird-looking boss, which has like a weird hair and also tiny body, and also this gigantic weird face looking. In this case, at this point, his name was actually the forms of Winter Winster, which basically all you need to do in this particular boss is very self-explanatory, although, except on the final phase, because even then we'll point things out whenever we get to it. But basically in this boss is that we need to use those little rocks, as you can see right there, and that way if you place one of those rocks into the forms of these hotspots, as you can see right there, that way it rises up the actual interrupted lava, or the actual mini volcanoes I should say, until it deals the damage on the forms of Winter Winster. better. And then that way you would able to actually beat the crap out of him, and vice versa though, really. Although, you need to be very careful with the forms of those little crushing balls from the skies, because if you somehow let the ball drop down while you're trying to stand above from it though, you instantly get squished, and then the chances are you lose like a few seconds for your momentum as far as I'm aware. But even then, though, it does get a little bit irritating at times. Well, thankfully though, this boss wasn't nearly as hard as the forms of how it does on the later boss fights has to offer. But then again though, we'll have to wait and see what happens there. In fact, the actual challenge of this boss fight is not that much of a challenge though. So even then, at this point, until whenever we get to someone very close towards the end, he might actually do something a little bit differently. Because of this though, he's able to do this. In fact, he actually uses the actual, I would say, a wind air, so that he actually creates a blimp Wario, a reference power-up, the forms of how he does it in, let's just say in, I would classify for saying in Wario Land 2 and Wario Land 3, and even 4 as a result of this matter, because if you get stung by a bee, you'll transform into the forms of blimp Wario, which allows you to able to carry, which actually carries you upwards, and then if you hit the ceiling, then you transform back into the forms of your normal self. However, the biggest difference is this time around in this game in particular is that if you somehow transformed into Blimp Wario, what happens is that, oh, did he immediately jump, you know, ahead of me? Oh, jeez. So anyways, in order to actually break free into your normal state is that you need to able to keep on waggling your control stick until you're able to actually transform back into your normal self. So, not that difficult, not that complicated either, but the chances are for this particular point is that in order to actually make your way safe, is that you do need to able to actually don't go near to the edge of the actual arena, because if the more you do it, then obviously you would able to actually get a lot of hits on you. So, now I'm hoping I don't get a game over though somehow, but even then though, so far we haven't got a single game over just yet though. But until whenever we get to, as I mentioned this before, until at the very end of the game. But even then, we'll have to wait and see what happens there when I continue my progression on this so far. So, and yeah, once again, we have to transform into ourselves the Blimp Wario for a bit. And yeah, you do need to able to keep on waggling the control stick left or right until you're able to actually break free from that. So, the only reason being for the fact that the actual boss can get pretty long as it goes by, because it took way too long sometimes. Especially noticeable, you have to wait until, well, specifically on the final phase of the fight, because basically that you do need to get a lot of emphasis on waiting. So, alright, hopefully we can able to finish him off. Oh, no, I don't think so. And there he goes. That pretty much takes care of the forms of Shivering Mountains, as well as the forms of the next boss, which appears to be, you know, Winter Windstar. So, and there we go. We're basically done with that particular level, as I mentioned this before. And once again, we'll gather some more coins and all that stuff. So even then, hopefully we'll gather some more until whenever we get to the actual harder parts about the actual game itself. So, nicely done. And of course, we got ourselves the claimed Wario statue, as you can see right there. So, yeah, not too shabby. And also, we got ourselves another half of our hearts at the moment. So, now we can actually access to this next level. So, in fact, let's save our game quickly. And I think we're going to have the endings off here for this point, guys. So, join me next time. Let's Play Wario World is the fact that we're going to be taking on the forms of the next level in Thrillsville, and hopefully we might as well end off with the forms of Thrillsville in the process. So see you guys then. Later, fellas.